The vanguard blocked half the stars. From the surface of Serapis Prime, it looked like a black continent hanging in the sky, studded with slow-blinking lights and edged in the faint blue halo of shield harmonics. 25 kilometers from bow to stern, she was less a ship and more a mobile city, armored in tritanium, bristling with railguns, and carrying enough fighters to erase a fleet. Commander Ellie's iron hand was stood on the carrier's forward observation platform, her hands clasped behind her back. Below, in the yawning flight deck, crews moved with crisp efficiency, loading munitions, refueling interceptors, running last-minute diagnostics. The scent of ozone and coolant drifted faintly through the air. Every sound was purposeful. No one on board mistook the peace talks for actual peace. "Commander," a voice came from behind her. Lieutenant Ramirez, head of long-range sensors, stepped forward and handed her a slate. Flickers again. Outer perimeter. SAM vectors as before. Still no transponder signals. Still no hard lock. Was scanned the readings. Small gravitational anomalies. Faint M spikes. Too regular to be random noise. How many? 4 this time. If they're stealth ships, they're patient. Or waiting for someone's signal, she said quietly, returning the slate. Keep monitoring. Don't escalate without my order. Aye, Commander. The diplomatic reception hall occupied the Vanguard's dorsal spine, a cavernous chamber of alloy and glass, built as much to impress as to host. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the curve of Serapis Prime below, its oceans glinting in the light of its sun. Holographic banners of both the Terran Union and the Kurth Dominion shimmered above the central table. Was entered with deliberate calm. She wore her dress blacks, their understated cut hiding the ballistic lining beneath. Every movement in the hall slowed as she approached her seat at the head of the human delegation. Opposite her, Chancellor Dravekor stood surrounded by his aides. Tall and broad-shouldered even for Kurth, his scaled skin carried a muted bronze sheen, and his eyes, horizontal slit pupils set in a field of umber, watched her like a predator assessing distance. "Commander Voss," he said with a shallow bow. His voice was low, measured, each word as precise as a blade. "It is an honor to stand aboard your formidable vessel." "Chancellor," she replied, inclining her head just enough to be polite. "I trust the journey from Dominion space was uneventful." He smiled faintly, showing the barest edge of teeth. "Uneventful, yes. Though we had time to reflect on humanity's rapid expansion. Remarkable for a species so young. It must be difficult to restrain such momentum." "A pace set by necessity," she said. "When you start small, you move fast or you don't survive." "Ah, survival." Dravekor's gaze shifted briefly toward the window, to where the Vanguard's shadow eclipsed a portion of Serapis Prime. "Let us hope survival is not all that defines your people." An hour into the opening discussions, the hall had settled into the familiar rhythm of diplomatic maneuvering. The Kurth delegate spoke of shared security and preventing destabilization, their phrasing careful but always circling the SAM point. Human expansion was a problem that needed management. Voss let her political counterpart, Ambassador Nehru, carry most of the verbal fencing. Her role here was symbolic, military authority at the table, a reminder that the Terran Union's words came backed by steel. Still, she spoke when necessary, threading iron through civility. When Dravekor spoke of limiting dangerous ship classes in neutral space, she said, "Deterrence is only dangerous to those planning aggression." When he hinted that smaller, less armed vessels would build trust, she replied, "Trust is earned in action, not in how far we let our guard drop." Between sessions, she stepped onto the observation deck again. The black beyond the viewport was deceptively still. Ramirez's voice crackled over her private comm. "Commander, anomalies just tripled. SAM pattern. Spacing's due clean, its formation behavior. Range 7 light minutes. Well outside immediate engagement, but they're creeping closer." She looked towards Serapis Prime's distant curve, where light from the sun caught the faint shimmer of orbital defense satellites. "Too few to stop a major fleet. You slow to react to stealth warships. Keep this channel secure, she said. No broadcasts. And start rotating patrol wings every 4 hours instead of 6. That's going to look like a readiness drill. That's all. The second diplomatic session began at sunset over Seraphis Prime. Light slanted through the conference hall's windows, painting the floor in gold. Dravko stood by the glass, looking out as the planet's shadow crept across its oceans. A beautiful world, he said as she approached. It would be a tragedy if conflict reached its shores. Agreed, was said evenly. That's why we're here, to prevent exactly that. Of course. He turned, his expression unreadable. And yet, I sense you do not believe peace will hold. She didn't answer immediately. I believe in preparing for the moment it doesn't. His gaze lingered a moment longer before he returned to his seat. As the evening session adjourned, Was lingered behind. The other delegates drifted out in small clusters, aides collecting data pads and translators. She stepped to the viewport again. The stars stared back, cold and silent. But she knew Ramirez's flickers were still out there, moving in their slow, patient arc. The thought of them, hidden ships creeping ever closer, pressed against the back of her mind like an unspoken countdown. In the glass, she saw movement. Dravko stood across the hall, hands folded behind his back, watching her reflection. Their eyes met in the dark pane for a single heartbeat. Then he turned and walked away. Was exhaled through her nose, slow and controlled. The peace table was just the surface. Something deeper, and far sharper, waited below. The morning over Seraphis Prime brought a cold blue light through the Vanguard's conference hall. The glass walls caught it, scattering the glow over polished alloy and the wide table where two civilizations faced each other. The human side sat straight-backed in tailored uniforms, the Kurd delegation, in layered ceremonial armor that gleamed faintly with embedded circuitry. Ambassador Nehru opened with a measured greeting, but Voss's attention stayed on Chancellor Dravko. He didn't fidget. He didn't blink much, either. His breathing was slow, deliberate, like someone pacing themselves for a fight they knew would last all day. Mutual stability, Dravko began, voice smooth as oil, is the foundation of lasting peace. Yet stability requires restraint. Expansion, unchecked, unmeasured, breeds instability. His gaze shifted to Voss without turning his head. We've all seen the dangers when younger civilizations move too quickly. Voss answered without ragging her tone. Survival doesn't move on anyone's timetable, but its own. He smiled faintly. An interesting philosophy. But consider the alternatives. Measured progress, fewer militarized assets in neutral space. A gesture of goodwill. That gesture, was said, would be the last thing a predator sees before it strikes. A murmur ran through both delegations. Nehru shot her a glance but didn't interrupt. On the bridge, far from the polished politeness of the conference, Lieutenant Ramirez leaned over his console. The ghost signatures were back, 7 this time, stretched across a wide arc. No matter how he shifted these scans, they kept the SAM-perfect spacing. Captain Rawak, he said quietly to the AXO, I'm telling you, this is a net tightening. They're getting closer with every pass. Rawak's jaw tightened. We're under diplomatic blackout. You want me to blast this over comms in the middle of a peace summit? I'm saying we can't keep treating them like phantoms, Ramirez replied. This is a formation. Only question is, are they waiting for a signal or giving one? Rawak's eyes flicked toward the conference hall feed on the corner screen. That's for the commander to decide. Back in the hall, the conversation had shifted to trade corridors and joint security patrols. Every Kurd proposal came wrapped in diplomacy, but tied with a knot that would bind humanity's hands. Dravko never raised his voice, never pushed too far at once. He didn't need to. The accumulation was the weapon. Voss let Nehru parry most points, but she added weight where needed. When Dravko proposed joint oversight of Terran shipbuilding, she asked, would the Dominion welcome the SAM over its fleets? When he called the Vanguard's presence in orbit an unnecessary display, she said, "The SAM has been said of a spine." The aides on both sides typed constantly, capturing every line for the records. But between the words, Voss could feel a separate conversation running, unspoken but understood. A recess was called for midday. Delegates broke into smaller groups, their quiet exchanges filling the air with the low hum of competing agendas. Voss stepped into the observation deck. Seraphis Prime rotated slowly below, sunlight spilling over its clouds. Ramirez's voice came through her earpiece, hushed but urgent. "Commander, the count's up to 9. SAM arc, SAM approach rate. Still no transponders. And they're inside 10 light minutes now. Have you flagged it to Rauerk?" "Yes, ma'am. He's holding position per protocol." Voss's eyes stayed on the planet. "Rotate all wings every 3 hours now. No public alert. Use maintenance cycles as cover. That's going to burn fuel. Then we'll burn it. Better that than let them get inside knife range." The afternoon session opened with trade concessions, low stakes compared to the morning's saber-rattling. Dravko spoke of cultural exchange programs, inter-academy research. His voice carried the ease of a man discussing surface paint, while the supports rotted beneath. "Commander Voss," he said suddenly, breaking from Nehru's prepared exchange, "do you believe this ship, your Vanguard, is the most formidable human warship in existence?" "It's not my place to rank ships, Chancellor," she said evenly. "But it was built to keep its people alive in the worst-case scenario." "And what is that scenario, in your mind?" "A war humanity didn't start, but intends to finish." A flicker passed through his eyes, amusement or calculation. "Curious. The worst-case scenario, for us, is the opposite." Evening light spilled long shadows through the hall. The session ended on a note of polite stalemate. No progress, no open hostility, just the steady erosion of time. As the Kurth delegation filed out, Voss lingered near the viewport. These stars were sharp and cold. Somewhere out there, 9 ships, or more, were moving with purpose. She caught movement in the glass again. Dravkor was standing behind her, closer than protocol allowed. "You speak like a soldier who has seen too much," he said quietly. "I've seen enough to know what comes when you see too little." He studied her for a long moment, then stepped away without another word. She left the hall and headed for the bridge. Rauerk was waiting. "We've confirmed 12 signatures now," he said in a low voice. "They're keeping perfect range, like they're waiting for a go signal." "Any change in the conference feed?" she asked. "None. If this is connected to the Chancellor, he's hiding it well." Voss looked over the tactical display, 12 faint ghosts arrayed in a slow-closing crescent. "The shape of a net. Keep us in readiness rotation. I want the crews to think we are just running endurance drills. And have engineering review the main drives for fast spin-up." Quietly. Rauerk nodded. Understood. As she left the bridge, Voss thought of Dravkor's eyes, the way they measured her as if she were already on the board, just another piece to be maneuvered. The difference was, she intended to be the piece that flipped the board entirely. The Vanguard's bridge felt like it was holding its breath. Tactical screens glowed in the dim light, 12 faint icons sliding across the outer perimeter like wolves testing the fence. They still carried no transponders, no drive signatures strong enough to trace, but their formation hadn't wavered in hours. Commander Voss stood behind the tactical pit, hands clasped behind her back. "Range." 8.6 light minutes, Ramirez replied. "Approach rate minimal, just enough to close without flagging auto warnings." "They want to stay ghosts," Rauerk muttered. "They already failed at that," Voss said. "Launch to recon drones. No active pings, passive feeds only." The conference hall was quieter than the previous day. Discussions about cultural cooperation had thinned into technical details nobody really cared about. The Kurd delegation seemed content to drag time forward grain by grain. Midway through a debate on mining rights, Voss's earpiece bust. "Recon confirms hull shapes," Ramirez whispered. "Not merchant class. All 12 are strike cruisers. No Dominion registry." Voss's eyes stayed on her Datpad, expression unchanged. "Shadow feed to my station. Keep your voice down." On her wrist display, grainy images formed, angular ships with segmented armor and recessed weapon base. Designed for first strikes, not defense. The Chancellor noticed her distraction. "Commander," Drevko said, "perhaps you'd favor us with your insight on the viability of joint patrols." Voss didn't look up. Joint patrols only work when both sides patrol in good faith. Otherwise, they become guided tours for an enemy fleet. A faint smile touched his mouth. "Then perhaps you mistrust us more than your superiors have told me." She met his gaze. "I trust patterns. And I trust my eyes." The silence that followed was sharper than any insult. On the bridge, the tactical plot shifted. The 12 cruisers split, to breaking high, to low, the rest maintaining the arc. A maneuver to encircle without looking like it. "They're tightening the noose," Ramirez said. "And they're synced to planetary rotation. They'll be in our shadow in 3 hours. Voss arrived seconds later, sliding into the command chair without ceremony. "Ready wings Alpha through Delta. No launch until I give word. All fighters hot and sealed." Rauerk leaned close. "If we wait too long, they'll have first volley. If we move too soon," she said, "we're the ones who start it." And the Chancellor walks out of here with a moral victory. 3 hours crawled by. The Kurd talk stalled over a clause, so minor it was clearly theatre. Delegates shuffled papers, conferred in whispers. Outside, the strike cruisers closed to 6 light minutes. Ramirez's voice came through again, hushed but urgent. "Commander, we've got emission spikes on 3 cruisers, charging something big." "Lock shields," was ordered. "Silent mode. Nothing they can see until they commit." The first shot was invisible. No flash, no warning. Just a sudden flare on sensors and a ripple across the Vanguard's forward shields. Energy bled away in a shimmer of blue light over the hull. In the conference hall, the impact was a muffled thud, like a faraway storm. Delegates froze. Drevko's expression didn't change, but his aide's fingers twitched over a concealed comms unit. Voss stood. "Ambassador Nehru, you may want to suspend talks. We're under attack." Drevko rose slowly. "An unfortunate misunderstanding, I'm sure." Her voice was flat. 12 warships firing on a human carrier is not a misunderstanding. She turned on her heel and walked out before he could answer. On the bridge, the tactical display was a blur of movement. Enemy ships accelerating, weapons lighting up like stars igniting. "Alpha and Bravo, launch." Voss barked. "Charlie and Delta hold in reserve. Prioritize the high flanks." The launch base roared to life. Fighters shot into the void, their drives burning bright against the darkness. The Vanguard rotated, massive engine swinging its armored bow toward the threat. "Main batteries online," Rauerk reported. "Target the lead cruiser. High flank. Full spread. Let them know we're awake." The first volley thundered out, rail slugs cutting through vacuum at a fraction of light speed. The lead cruiser shuddered under the impact, armor buckling in a halo of vaporized metal. "2 cruisers breaking off," Ramirez called. "Trying to draw us wide." "Their bait," Voss said. "Don't chase. Hold the center." Fighter chatter filled the comms, bursts of static, calls for wingmen, kill confirmations. A human interceptor sliced through the flank of an enemy corvette, leaving it tumbling in pieces. But for every kill, another hostile ship edged closer to firing range. "Shields holding at 82%, Rauerk reported. "We can trade hits for now, but not forever." "Then we stop trading," Voss said. Bring torpedo base online. Target their coordination ship. The coordination ship sat behind the main line, feeding targeting data to the others. Without it, their formations would fracture. Torpedoes ready. Weapons confirmed. Fire one, then wait. I want them thinking it's all we had ready. The torpedo streaked out, its drive flaring before vanishing into silent running. Moments later, it slammed into the coordination ship's forward section, tearing a ragged hole through armor and venting crew into the void. The enemy line faltered. Maneuvers grew sloppy, firing arcs misaligned. Draveco's voice came over open comms, smooth even now. Commander Voss, I strongly advise you to stand down. This engagement benefits no one. You fired first, she said coldly. You sent warships into our shadow. You don't get to claim the moral ground now. There will be consequences, he warned. There already are. She cut the channel. The battle tipped hard in humanity's favor. Alpha Wing gutted the high flank, torpedoes shredded another cruiser, and the survivors broke formation, scattering into deep space. Do we pursue? Rauerk asked. Voss studied the display. Negative. Let them run. We need to make it clear we chose to let them live. The last hostile ship vanished from sensors. Silence settled over the bridge, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. Hours later, the conference hall stood empty. The Kurth delegation had left without a word. Rauerk found was at the observation deck, watching the scarred horizon of Seraphis Prime. We'll have fallout from this, he said quietly. I know, she replied. But I'd rat. The air aboard the Vanguard carried a different weight now, charged, expectant. Every deck, every corridor, hummed not with the usual mechanical rhythm of a ship in motion, but with the tense quiet of people who knew they were being hunted. Commander Elise was strode into combat command, her boots striking the deck plates with deliberate precision. The massive wraparound displays painted the room in deep blues and shifting tactical icons. Around her, officers spoke in clipped tones, no wasted words. The Vanguard was sliding through the lawn expanse at half speed, masking her reactor emissions as ordered. Report, Elise said, stepping up to the central holotable. Lieutenant Ramirez didn't look up from his console. Shadow contacts are still pacing us, ma'am. 5 confirmed, possibly more outside our detection envelope. No active targeting. No comms traffic we can intercept. That's almost worse than if they were firing, muttered Lieutenant Shireen from sensors. Like they're just waiting. They are, Elise said. Her voice was steady, but the tension behind her eyes betrayed the truth. And we need to know why before they close the news. Across the table, Fleet Intelligence Liaison Avery Dre tapped in a sequence and brought up a 3-dimensional overlay of the sector. This region has 6 choke points where they could pin us. Given our trajectory, there's one likely ambush corridor, here. The map flared crimson. Elise studied it for a moment, then looked to tactical. Options. Commander Holtz folded his arms. We could punch through at full burn and hope their stealth can't keep up. Or, he hesitated. We could let them spring it and turn it back on them. Risky, Elise said, especially with unknown numbers. Holtz's expression was grim. Ma'am, with respect, this is the Vanguard. We're not prey. Before Elise could respond, the comm panel chimed. Bridge, incoming message from Chancellor Draveco's flagship, the comms officer announced. On screen, Elise ordered. The alien's angular features filled the main display, his dark eyes glinting with amusement. Commander Voss. How fascinating that a ship so legendary chooses to crawl through the shadows. Is your mighty carrier afraid? I'm cautious, Elise replied evenly. There's a difference. Draveco's thin lips curved. Caution. An admirable trait, though wasted here. You are in my territory, Commander, and I do not allow uninvited guests to leave without Tribute. What kind of tribute? Elise asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Your ship, Dravkor said simply. You will surrender the Vanguard, and in return, your crew will be permitted to live. A ripple of incredulous laughter ran through the bridge crew. Elise didn't smile. Not going to happen. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. Then you will meet the silent armorer. The transmission cut abruptly. The room seemed to hold its breath. Holtz broke the silence. Silent armorer. Avri's expression hardened. A fleet that doesn't fire until the kill is certain. No comms, no warnings. Just coordinated annihilation. Ramir swore under his breath. So, basically, we're walking into a firing squad that's already got their fingers on the trigger. Elise leaned forward over the holotable, her mind moving in rapid calculations. Then we make the trigger misfire. She keyed the intercom. All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for engagement. Engineering, ready decoy drones and false signal buoys. Weapons, load all batteries but keep safe ties engaged until my mark. Navigation, plot a staggered burn through their likely intercept vector. She cut the channel and turned back to her senior staff. We let them think they have us pinned. Then, when they commit, we rip the net apart from the inside. Holt's eyes lit with the Predator's anticipation. Understood. Minutes later, the Vanguard slipped deeper into the crimson-marked corridor. The void around them was silent, but the sensor boards tracked faint ghost signatures drawing closer, like sharks encircling a wounded leviathan. Ellie stood behind the hem station, watching the tactical plot tighten. Every movement from the shadow contacts was deliberate, coordinated. No rush, just inevitability. Contact splitting, Shireen reported. 3 ahead, 2 behind. No emissions. Still outside weapons range. They're herding us, Holtz muttered. Let them, Ellie said. Hem, steady course. Keep reactor output low. The crew obeyed, and the Vanguard drifted into the trap. Then, almost imperceptibly, the ghost shapes ahead shifted, closing their formation. They're committing, Shireen confirmed. Ellie's voice was calm but sharp. Deploy decoys. Navigation. Initiate staggered burn on my mark. Tactical. Target forward formation with all primary batteries. A countdown clock appeared on the main display. 10 seconds. Every heartbeat in the command deck seemed to sync with it. At 0, the Vanguard surged forward, reactors flaring as a decoy scattered in all directions, flooding the enemy's targeting sensors with false positives. The forward formation broke, scrambling to adjust, but the carrier's guns were already spitting fire into the black. 3 shadow contacts flared bright and then vanished from sensors. Rear contacts accelerating. Ramir called. Elise pivoted instantly. Rotate the ship. Give them the broadside. The Vanguard spun on her axis with impossible grace for something so massive. Her secondary batteries lit up, shredding one of the trailing ships in a storm of kinetic slugs and plasma bursts. The remaining attackers scattered, still silent, still no transmissions, but the coordination was gone. Should we pursue? Holtz asked, already itching for the kill. No, Ellie said, her eyes on the empty black where the Chancellor's forces had been. This wasn't the whole fleet. He's still out there, waiting for us to overextend. We keep moving. The bridge crew exchanged glances but obeyed. As the Vanguard slipped from the ambush corridor, Elise allowed herself one thought. We've bloodied his nose. But the real fight hasn't even started. She turned back to her officers. Reset decoys. Reload all batteries. And get me an updated map of every choke point between here and friendly space. If Dravkor wants to play silent armorer, we'll show him just how loud humans can be. And with that, the Vanguard disappeared into the dark, carrying the weight of a battle half won and a war still waiting in the shadows. The Vanguard emerged from the lawn expanse battered but unbroken. Her hull bore fresh scorch marks where plasma had grazed, and her armor plating carried the dents of kinetic impacts. But she was still fast, still armed, and still very much alive. Commander Elise was stood at the center of combat command, eyes fixed on the main display. Ahead lay the Dekra rift, a swirling expanse of ionized gas and debris that could scramble even the most advanced sensors. It was their only way out, and the perfect place for Dravecore to make his final move. "Status on all systems?" she asked. "Primary drives at 89%. Chief Engineer Molai replied over comms. "Weapons and shields fully operational. Decoys restocked." "Good. We're going in hot." The rift loomed larger with every passing minute, its tendrils of green and violet plasma stretching across the black. Avery Dre from Fleet Intelligence leaned toward Elise. "If I were him, I'd strike in the center, where the rift's interference is strongest. Perfect for masking approach vectors." "That's exactly where he'll be," Elise said. "And that's exactly where we'll kill him." Her voice carried no bravado, just the calm certainty of someone who would already committed to the outcome. They entered the rift under full burn. The ship's hull shivered as charged particles slammed into it, dancing in flickers of light across the viewports. The sensor boards lit with static and distortion. Then, Shireen's voice, tight and clipped. Multiple contacts emerging. 12 ships. Formation spread. Closing fast. 12. Holtz at Tactical leaned over the display. He brought the whole armada. The comms panel lit up. "Incoming transmission." On screen, Elise ordered. Dravecore's face appeared, haloed by riftlight, calm and confident. "You fight well, Commander. But all things end. Even legends." Elise met his gaze. "Then let's see whose legend survives." She cut the channel before he could reply. "Battle plan stands," she told her crew. "They expect us to fight blind. We won't." Navigation. Lock in pattern Delta. Tactical. Focus on disabling weapons first, engines second. Leave hulls intact where possible. "Going to take prisoners?" Holtz asked. "Going to send a message," Elise said. The first wave hit like a storm. Plasma bursts flared against the Vanguard's shields, filling the bridge with a dull, resonant thrum. Elise called the timing, and the carrier rolled into a broadside, unleashing her full fury. 3 enemy vessels shuddered under the assault, their weapons flickering out before they could respond. "Targets neutralized," Ramirez shouted. But the rest of the armada pressed in, fanning out to encircle. They moved in airy silence, still without comchutter, still perfectly coordinated, until the Vanguard's next move. "Deploy ghost mines," Elise ordered. From her ventral base, the carrier scattered a pattern of magnetic anchor drones, each emitting the Vanguard's exact signature. Within seconds, half the enemy ships had locked onto the decoys, wasting volleys into empty rift hatch. "That's our gap," Elise snapped. "Punch through the center." The Vanguard surged forward, battering to ships aside with concentrated fire. The deck vibrated under the strain, the inertial dampeners fighting to keep up. Holtz grinned as another hostile ship spun out of control, venting atmosphere. "That's 5 down. 7 to go," Elise said. The enemy flagship appeared through the rift's hatch, larger than the rest, angular and bristling with weapon ports. "Dravecore's vessel." "Bring us in close," Elise ordered. Holtz turned. "Close. That thing has triple our firepower. That's why we get close. They can't bring their full guns to bear in knife fight range." The Vanguard cut through the last 2 escorts, shields flaring white. The flagship loomed ahead, its hull markings glowing in the rift's green light. "Target primary batteries. Ignore the rest," Elise said. The Vanguard's forward guns hammered the alien vessel, tearing through its heavy cannons one by one. The flagship fired back, shaking the carrier with each hit, but Elise didn't flinch. "Bring us alongside," she barked. At 20 meters apart, Both ships roared in mutual fury, exchanging point-blank fire. Flagship shields down. Shireen reported. Ellie's voice dropped to a low command. Boarding pods, launch. 6 pods streaked across the gap, slamming into the alien hull with magnetic clamps. The ship shuddered as the breach teams cut their way in. Pod 1, secured, came the first report. Advancing to bridge. Dravecor's forces fought hard in the corridors, but the humans were relentless. Shot by shot, doorway by doorway, they forced their way forward. Minutes later, Pod 1's commander came over comms. Bridge secured. Dravecor is in custody. A quiet, electric satisfaction rippled through the Vanguard. On the alien bridge, Ellie stood face to face with the Chancellor. He was taller than she'd expected, armored in ceremonial plating. His expression was unreadable. "You could have killed us all," he said. "You tried," Elise replied. Dravecor inclined his head slightly, almost a nod of respect. "You fight like your kind once ruled the stars." Elise's gaze was steady. "Maybe we still do." She turned to her team. "Take him to the brig. Secure the ship. We'll tow it back." Hours later, the Vanguard emerged from the rift towing the captured flagship, the rest of the silent armada in ruins behind them. The crew was exhausted but alive, their silence broken only by the low murmur of systems checks and damage reports. Ellie stood on the observation deck, watching the rift fade into the distance. She knew this victory would echo across human space, across alien territories, across every corridor where whispers of the Vanguard already traveled. Holtz joined her, leaning on the railing. "You think this ends it?" "No," Ellie said quietly. "But it changes it. They won't come at us silent again." He chuckled. "Good. I prefer when they scream." Elise allowed herself the smallest smile. "So do I." The Vanguard turned toward home, her hull scarred but her legend brighter than ever, carrying a message no enemy could ignore. When you strike at humanity, humanity strikes back harder.